Hey mamas, in today's update, I'm going to be sharing curriculum, books, supplements, and also activities that have been serious game changers for my kids as far as their math and reading goes. I'm Yael, by the way, if we haven't already met, and I'm a homeschooling mama of 3 mini humans. And if you love videos all about curriculum, resources, and eclectic home learning, you have come to the right place. So be sure to subscribe and enable those notifications so you don't miss what I have next just for you, mama. So this past week, I spent some time catching up with you all about our highlights, lessons learned, and other things from this past month of homeschooling. But now I'm going to talk with you about some materials, supplements, and activities that have been so beneficial for my children this past month. This first material has been an absolute godsend for my 2 older children who have been learning and practicing their sight words, and that is this sight word pack by Think Tank Scholars. Now, these cards are leveled cards, meaning that they start off at pre-K and they go all the way up to 3rd grade. However, I was finding that some of the cards from different grade levels are ones that my children are familiar with. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your child just has to focus on the pre-K level. There are certainly words in other levels that they may already know and you would want them to also practice. Now, the curriculum that my kids use, which is Logic of English, provides sight words for them to learn. However, I found a few gaps with the sight words that they were having them practice, and so these cards were helping to fill those gaps. One of the ways that we have been using these cards to practice is we create and build sentences, and I'm sure this is probably something you have already been doing with your kids, but the reason why I love these cards for that in particular is because they're pretty big, so the kids can see the words in big font, and then what they do is they build a train of words that creates a sentence, and they have fun with that. Sometimes they'll switch words around, and it's also a great way to practice grammar. So if you're introducing things like articles, adjectives, nouns, and verbs, the children, as they build the sentences, they can point to and tell you which one of those words is a noun, for example. So that's a great way to practice grammar as well. This next item is a functional, like organizational item that has been able to help us keep all of our supplies together while we're doing our morning basket, our morning learning time. And that is this Caddy. It's super cute, and it came in a pack of 2. I got it from Home Goods, which it's so funny. I feel like I get really cool homeschool scores from Home Goods like often. The reason why I love this Caddy so much is because it solved the issue of having crayons, markers, pencils all over the place while we did our morning basket. So this is a really cute little solution that I have found from Home Goods to help us organize all of those little materials and items. The next material that has been so helpful for my oldest daughter to practice her place values and addition and subtraction beyond 20 are Montessori beads. I highly prefer these materials over others that I've seen because they're so incredibly tactile, and the child can actually feel what 10, 100, and 1,000 feels like in their hands. And so this has been so helpful for my oldest daughter, and she absolutely loves to use these materials. And I've seen such growth with her math as she is using these materials. So this is definitely not something that was cheap, and I really had to think long and hard, like, are we going to use this for all of our kids for a long time? And it's been really wonderful and helpful so far. Now let's talk curriculum and supplements. So in general, I have streamlined all of our curriculum. So what that means is both my 2 older children are using the same exact curriculum at different levels. For reading and language arts, we use Foundations, Logic of English, levels A for my youngest daughter, and then B and C for my oldest daughter. Then for math, we use Singapore Dimensions, level K for my youngest, and level 1B/2 she's getting into now for my oldest. What I have loved about this process of streamlining is that it has worked thankfully for both of my kids equally as well. And then the other thing is the way that they go through the curriculum, the way that the curriculum is structured is very similar. So what I was finding is as I was doing lessons between the two of them, they would come to an assessment together. So the patterning and the sequencing of the curriculum, the frequency of doing assessments and checks and things like that are very similar. So that has been so helpful for me in my planning. Now I want to talk about some supplements that have really been helpful for my kids recently. The first one is Explode the Code 1.5, which I'm using with my oldest daughter right now. This book is a transitional book from Explode the Code 1, which we did last year, to Explode the Code 2, which goes more into long vowel sounds, a few of the phonograms that she's learning now. But the reason why I wanted to do 1.5 is because I wanted her to have a stronger grounding in CVC words, which I know seems like, oh, but she's in second grade. The problem we have been running into, though, is that she switches some of the letters around when she's reading because she wants to read it so quickly, but she forgets to slow down. So this is more of like a practice for her to slow down when it comes to decoding those simple words. The next thing is alphaphonics, which we are using just for additional practice. The reason why I love alphaphonics so much is because it is super simple and it helps the child to really practice those word families. So if you look through alphaphonics, you'll notice that when they introduce a new phonogram or a new concept like long vowels and silent E's, things like that, they will have a whole list of words that have a word family. So for instance, AKE, ache. The reason why this has been great is because it helps my daughter to focus on that first initial sound of the word, and she doesn't have to think about decoding the rest because she knows that they're going to be the same as she reads down the row. This has been really helpful for her, again, to slow down, really think about that first initial sound of the word, and then blend and read. The other thing that I really like is that they have a whole list of practice sentences once a child has mastered a concept. So again, with the long vowel A, the silent letter E, you'll see that at the end of their practice with that, they have all these sentences that incorporate that concept of the silent letter E and the long vowel A. Last but not least, in the area of curriculum, I need to just touch on one that we have not touched yet, and that is Brave Writer. Brave Writer is pretty involved, and it's more like a language arts with a writing emphasis curriculum. What that includes is music and art appreciation, copy work, poetry tea time, things like that. And some of those things we have been doing. So for instance, we have been doing a lot of copy work, and I actually use some of the books that my kids have been reading to do copy work with, and that has been great. But things like poetry tea time, we haven't really done. I kind of tried it with the kids, but they weren't really feeling it. I also have not done too much art and music appreciation as of yet. I'm honestly trying to find my footing with that. And then as far as the 10 months worth of projects that Brave Writer Jotted Down curriculum focuses on, we just have not had time to do that yet. So maybe we'll start that in the second semester. Now I want to share with you an activity, a math activity that has been an absolute game changer for my oldest daughter. Now, I'm not going to go off into this whole thing about how to learn math facts, but I did want to mention one thing that I learned recently because it's been really helpful, and that is the fact that your child doesn't need to memorize something plus 1 or something plus 0. Those are actually a little bit easier for the child to know without memorizing. However, what they do need to memorize is anything that goes beyond 2. So 2 plus 3 equals 5, or 2 plus 9 equals 11. One additional thing I wanted to mention about math facts, specifically past 11, is that they will have to do less and less memorization as they approach 20. And in fact, you only need to memorize up to 18. And the reason for this is because as you are approaching those higher numbers, really you're relying on those math facts up to 10. So I'll give you an example. Doing 4 plus 14 equals 18. A child doesn't need to memorize that 4 plus 14 equals 18. They need to know that 4 plus 4 equals 8, and then you're adding a group of 10 to that, which makes 18. What my oldest daughter was struggling with is numbers past 10. And so I created this sheet, and I'll link it below just for you. It'll be free. The child will see the exact number of bonds, adding and subtracting, that they need to memorize for each of these numbers. So for 11, there's only 4 equations, addition and subtraction, that they need to memorize. And the other thing that I was realizing is once a child actually understands the bond and has memorized the number bond, they can do the addition and subtraction. So this sheet has been really, really helpful. The other thing that has been really helpful is having actual manipulatives to see how these number bonds work and how the addition and subtraction works. So right here, I have these little circles that I put numbers on, and I cut this out from poster board so it's nice and thick and it's not easy to tear. And then I gave her some popsicle sticks of different colors so that she can create her bonds. And what I do is I will give her a couple at a time. So for instance, the first ones that I introduced were 2 plus 9 and 3 plus 8 for 11. And she had to figure out what they were. Doing 2 at a time like this was a lot easier for her to figure out than giving her the whole set of 4 different bonds that she had to memorize. So over the course of a week, we were able to help her memorize all of those number facts for the number 11. About a month ago, I put out a video that talked about all kinds of fall activities that I'm planning to do with the kids, and I have had the privilege of presenting those materials and activities for them, and there are a few that we absolutely loved. The first one is leaf embroidering, and I don't know if I actually included that in the video, but it's something that has been super cute and super fun for my oldest 2 daughters to do. The other one that I actually absolutely loved as well was leaf rubbing. I don't know if you've ever tried this, but essentially you gather leaves from the outdoors. So the first thing we did was go on a nature walk to get those leaves, and that was really fun. And then you just put the leaf on a flat surface, and you grab a crayon and you just rub it gently, and then you can see all of the veining of the leaves coming out on the paper. You can do this with multiple colors, and it's just such a soothing and fun and beautiful activity. Last but not least, I bought this Dollar Tree painting activity, and that I think was probably the highlight for my kids. They absolutely loved painting these little pictures, and I think I'm gonna go back to the Dollar Tree to get more for the current season and for the winter season. Now, on to some books that we have been absolutely loving. Last time I did an update, I did a book of the month, but honestly, it was really, really hard for me to choose which book we have been loving the most. So I'm gonna share 3 of them with you. Actually, make that 4. This first one is called Just Like Me, and it's by Vanessa Brantley Newton. It is such a beautifully illustrated, beautifully written book, and it's essentially a collection of poems that are themed and really aimed at empowering girls and speaking to a lot of the different experiences that different girls go through in their childhood. I'm gonna read one of the poems for you and do a little flip through so you can see what's inside of the book. This poem is called I Am. I am a song longing to be sung. I am the shine belonging to the sun. I am the sweetness in the breeze. I am the roots of the big oak tree. I am the fish swimming in the sea. Results of ancestors' prayers to be free. These next 2 books are fall themed books. And quite honestly, there are a bunch of them that we really, really do love, but we have read these and really kind of latched onto them. One of them we read a couple of times, and that one was Leaf Jumpers. It's by Carol Gerber, illustrated by Leslie Evans, and it's a rhyming book, which I actually find that I like a lot. I love rhyming books. It's got a nice rhythm to it, a nice flow to it. The descriptor words are so beautiful. The other thing that I really love about this book is that it actually talks through some of the specific leaves and trees, and it describes them for you so that the child can actually go into the backyard or do a nature walk, nature hike, and find some of these leaves. This next book is called The Little Yellow Leaf, and it's by Corinne Berger. It's about a little leaf, a yellow leaf, that decides they want to cling and cling and cling to their branch. They don't want to fall off. And in the end, there's a sweet surprise where the leaf actually does eventually fall off because they are encouraged by another leaf that has decided they want to cling to their branch as well. And so it's sweet because you see that the leaf is not alone. And because they find out that they're not alone, they're encouraged to dive down together with this other leaf. Now, the last book I'm going to talk about actually belongs to a series of books that we've been enjoying, and it's chapter books that we have been reading during our lunchtime. I will say though, it might be a little bit controversial and definitely not for everyone. It is Harry Potter. How did I get to Harry Potter? Essentially, we went to a friend's themed birthday party. So one of my children's friends was doing a Harry Potter themed birthday, and I was pretty captivated by Harry Potter my entire life. But, this birthday party, I talked to my friend about her experiences reading the book and things like that. And she raved about it. So I was like, oh, and I really trust her judgment as well. She's really good at picking out those books that are very fascinating and captivating for children. So I decided to give it a whirl and see okay, how is this book going to fare with us? And we absolutely fell in love with it. My oldest daughter loves it the most. My middle daughter kind of it's like touch and go. She's not really that interested. And my son just has no clue what's going on. So there are definitely times where I have to kind of read sentences and chapters ahead of time. I kind of scan through and change some things around if I need to so that the kids are not being exposed to things that maybe I don't think they're ready for yet. For instance, saying certain words, not like cuss words or anything like that, but like harsh words, like saying hate or stupid or it's something like that, that I'm not comfortable with saying in front of them. So I will change up those words. I'll sometimes change up something that might be happening in a scene that I feel like is too intense for them. So I've been able to modify it but keep it genuine enough for us to understand and enjoy. So there you go. Harry Potter is something that we have been really, really enjoying. Bonus, I'm going to share with you a TV show. Yes, you heard me, TV show that we have been absolutely loving over here, and it's called Alma's Way. I don't hear the homeschooling community talk enough about wonderful TV shows that are educational and very interactive for their kids. So I wanted to share this with you because it's something that we just have been cherishing over here. So perfect timing for Hispanic Heritage Month. This is a show about this girl. Her name is Alma. And she is of Puerto Rican descent, which I was like, oh my gosh, finally, a show that depicts a young girl who has a similar experience to me so that my children can get exposure to what it was like for me in my childhood. And she lives in a city. She is surrounded by people from all different types of backgrounds. And the premise of the show is Alma and her navigation of different interpersonal relationships and situations. So she does some problem solving, which is fantastic because it models for kids stopping and thinking about something before you jump into helping, and finding a solution. So for example, one of the episodes has a child who is interested in singing and is very talented and wants to sing in Alma's group. And so when he agrees to that, he's excited, but then he finds out that all these people are going going to be watching him, and he just backs out all of a sudden. So Alma, kind of goes up to the screen and is interactive with the viewer and says, let's think about this. Why did he back out of this? And it kind of backtracks and goes through different scenes. So it models for the child like how to stop and think about a situation. And then once you've thought about it and figured out why somebody is feeling the way that they're feeling, you can now broach the topic with the person and help them work through it. So this has been such a pleasure for us to watch. I sit down and I watch it with my kids. It's so wonderful to see. If you're interested in more videos like this, please check them out. I have plenty that talk about curriculum choices and resources, supplements, all of those different types of things. But thank you so much for joining me today. Be blessed, and I'll see you in the next one, Mama.